The scream echoed through the maternity ward like a crack of thunder, sharp and sudden, slicing through the quiet hum of machines and whispered prayers. A pregnant woman lay helpless on a hospital bed, one hand clutching her swollen belly, the other trembling in fear, while another woman stood over her with rage burning in her eyes. In that moment, pain, betrayal, and destiny collided in a way no one could have imagined, and a single cruel act set off a chain of events that would expose secrets buried for decades. If stories about kindness, consequences, and second chances move you, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these powerful stories reach more hearts. Aisha had always believed that hospitals were places of healing. Even in her fear, even with her heart aching under the weight of betrayal, she trusted that the white walls and soft lights would protect her and her unborn child. She was 7 months pregnant, exhausted and emotionally bruised from discovering only weeks earlier that her husband had been living a double life. Yet she stayed quiet, choosing the baby over confrontation, choosing peace over chaos. Her admission to the hospital was supposed to be routine, a precaution after sudden pains. She never imagined it would become the most terrifying day of her life. Her body was weak, but her spirit was still holding on when the door to her room opened without warning. The woman who entered did not wear concern on her face like family members usually did. Instead, her eyes were sharp, her jaw tight, and every step she took seemed fueled by something dark and unresolved. This was Sarah, the woman who had been living in the shadows of Aisha's marriage, the mistress who believed she had been promised a future that was now slipping away. To Sarah, Aisha was not a victim or a human being carrying a child. She was an obstacle. The attack happened fast, brutally fast. Sarah's hands pushed, struck, and grabbed in a blur of jealousy and desperation. Aisha cried out, her body curling instinctively around her belly, fear surging stronger than the pain. Nurses rushed in, alarms rang, and orderlies restrained Sarah before irreversible damage could be done. But the emotional wound had already been carved deep. Aisha lay shaking, tears soaking her pillow, convinced that the world had finally turned against her. As chaos filled the corridor, security was called, and Sarah was taken away screaming accusations. The hospital staff worked desperately to stabilize Aisha. The baby's heartbeat fluttered, then steadied, like a fragile promise refusing to be broken. Doctors whispered serious words, and the room felt heavy with uncertainty. Aisha stared at the ceiling, numb, replaying every moment that had led her here. She wondered how love could rot into cruelty, how a life she had built so carefully could collapse so suddenly. News of the incident traveled fast, reaching family members who had been kept at a distance by Aisha's quiet nature. One call, placed by a shaken nurse, reached a man who had lived most of his life in silence and shadows. He was a man of authority, known for his discipline, his calm control, and his unyielding sense of justice. Few people knew his personal story. Fewer still knew he had a daughter he had lost years ago due to circumstances beyond his control. When he heard Aisha's name, the world seemed to pause. Colonel Rahman had spent decades serving the country, facing danger without flinching, commanding respect without raising his voice. But nothing in his career prepared him for the fear that gripped his chest when he realized that the woman lying injured in that hospital bed was his daughter. Aisha had been raised by relatives after her mother's death, and Rahman's work had kept him away, emotionally and physically distant. He had watched from afar, believing his presence would only bring danger into her life. Now, that distance felt like the greatest mistake he had ever made. He arrived at the hospital without ceremony, his presence alone shifting the energy of the place. Doctors straightened, security stood alert, and whispers followed him down the hallway. When he entered Aisha's room, the sight nearly broke him. His strong frame stiffened as he took in her bruised arms, her pale face, and the gentle rise and fall of her belly. He did not speak. He did not need to. His eyes told a story of regret, fury, and a promise silently made. Aisha woke to find him sitting beside her, his hand resting near hers, careful not to disturb her. Recognition came slowly, followed by a rush of emotions she had buried for years. Relief mixed with confusion and sorrow. She had not expected him to come. She had not expected anyone to fight for her anymore. Yet there he was, a steady presence in the storm, reminding her that she was not alone. Outside that room, consequences were already unfolding. Sarah's outburst had crossed a line that could not be ignored. Hospital security reports, witness statements, and camera footage painted a clear picture. What Sarah did not know, and could never have imagined, was that the man now overseeing the response was not just any powerful figure. Colonel Rahman's reach extended far, not through corruption or threats, but through unwavering respect for the law. He did not seek revenge. He sought justice. The investigation moved swiftly. Sarah's past actions were examined, revealing a pattern of instability and manipulation that had gone unnoticed. Charges were filed, and the reality of her situation began to sink in. The anger that once fueled her now turned into fear as she realized that her actions had consequences far greater than a moment of rage. She had attacked a pregnant woman, and that woman was the daughter of a man who believed deeply in accountability. Meanwhile, Aisha faced her own battle. Trauma lingered in her body and mind. Nights were restless, filled with sudden awakenings and tears she could not explain. She worried constantly about her baby, every small pain triggering panic. But slowly, surrounded by care and protected by her father's quiet strength, she began to heal. Nurses spoke gently, doctors reassured her, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to lean on someone else. Colonel Rahman stayed close, attending meetings during the day and sitting beside her bed in the evenings. He listened when she needed to speak and remained silent when words were too heavy. He did not justify his absence in her past. He did not make excuses. Instead, he focused on the present, on making sure she felt safe, valued, and protected. Through small gestures, he rebuilt a bond that had once seemed lost forever. As weeks passed, Aisha was discharged from the hospital, her body stronger, her spirit cautiously hopeful. The legal process continued, and Sarah faced the weight of her actions in court, stripped of the illusions she once held. Aisha chose not to attend the hearings, choosing peace over reliving the trauma. Her father handled what needed to be done, ensuring justice without cruelty, closure without vengeance. The final months of pregnancy were not easy, but they were different. Aisha's home was filled with quiet support, doctor visits were accompanied by reassuring smiles, and fear slowly gave way to anticipation. She talked to her baby at night, telling stories of strength and resilience, promising a world where love would be louder than anger. When the day finally came, and her child was placed in her arms, something shifted deep within her. Tears fell freely, not from pain but from overwhelming gratitude. Colonel Rahman stood nearby, his hardened exterior finally cracking as he looked at his grandchild. In that moment, the cycle of silence and distance ended. A new chapter began, written not in fear, but in courage and connection. If this story has touched your heart, if it made you feel the power of justice, forgiveness, and family, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep these meaningful stories alive. Before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words matter, and they remind others that they are not alone. Aisha often thought back to that terrifying day in the hospital, not with bitterness, but with clarity. What began as an act of cruelty became a turning point, revealing the strength she never knew she had and the family she thought she had lost. The scars remained, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they stood as proof that even in the darkest moments, truth has a way of rising, and love, when given a second chance, can be unbreakable.